Hey, Shantice.
Hi, Elvis.
You didn't call me, so I wasn't sure I would see you.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, that's not it. Okay, well, let me go back.
Would you like to restart the recording?
Oh, it's okay. I'm trying to share the PowerPoint, but I had too many open. I had a lot of PowerPoints open because I was studying we would do next after this one. Okay, we're ready to get started. You're ready to get started. Okay, I used up my few minutes waiting on those in the other time zone, so we already used those up, so we can get started now. This is Lace, Love Applied Can Endure, and we're talking about winning battles with love. This is a book that I've written, and you can purchase this book if you want more information about winning battles with love. There is more in the book, and it can be purchased at Barnes and Nobles, or it can be purchased on my website. And of course, if you want to contact me, you can do that by writing me to Dr. C.V. White, LLC, 150 Post Office Road, Suite 1027 in Waldorf, Maryland, 20604. Or you can email me at drcvwhite@gmail.com, or visit my website at cvwhite.com. And of course, you can always review these video club presentations on YouTube at Dr. C.V. White Lace. So we're on YouTube. So we're talking about winning battles with love, and what we've been doing for the last couple of months, maybe 3 months, talking about winning battles for love. And we're on the last, next to the last section on this subject. So we will be doing the final subject next week, and then we'll be shifting to another subject. But right now, what we're talking about is practical applications of love, those practical characteristics of love that help us understand whether we're doing it or not, how much of it we're doing, and whether we are applying love when we should be, or not applying it when we shouldn't be. So we'll be talking about that. These last two ones that we're going to do is two of the most difficult ones. So they are the last one. They're two of the most difficult ones, and they are the ones I think that trick us up trip us up the most, and so we get tricked into thinking that everything is okay because this is normal, but then normal is not where we should be. Normal is not where we should be. So we're going to start with this last one. We started with this one last week, but I didn't finish it because we ran out of time at 8:30. I just shut down at 8:30, and give us 15 minutes to talk about it so that we can just get off until next week. So we have to go back. We have to go back and finish this one. Now we started to talk about this characteristic of love. It's not to keep an account of wrong done to you. Okay, can you read that, Shantice?
Yes, practical characteristics of love. Another characteristic of love is not to keep an account of a wrong done to you. We more often than not want to make people pay for what they did or to get revenge, and we do take an account of the evil that has been done to us. We certainly pay close attention to all suffered wrong that we have to put up with. We go to a negative place when people do us wrong, and we will not win battles in negative places. Our common reply is saying some kind of rebuttal or excuse in our defense, or singing a somebody done me wrong song.
Okay, so what does this mean? What does this mean? It means that we absolutely cannot keep an account of wrongdoing. So just take a minute now and think about the wrongs that people have done to you. Can anybody think of the wrongs? I mean, do they come to your mind? Do they disappear? The wrongs that were done to you, people that did you wrong. Don't you remember those? Anybody who remembers those? I don't mean be angry with them. I mean, you just remember somebody did you wrong. Nobody?
Yes.
Okay, you too, Inez, you remember? Okay, now when we see those persons or when they do something again, we remember what they did wrong. But this is the hard part because when people are doing something wrong, it's either hurting us, it offends us, it makes us angry, and all kinds of things that cause us to want to stop doing that or want them to stop doing that. And we're going to talk about why in a minute. But we want to make sure that we understand that, many people, when people are doing them wrong, at least I did, I would think about how nice I have been to them. I would think about what in the world have I done to cause this to be happening to me. And sometimes I would think about, well, I didn't deserve all of that, you know. But then that was the problem. The problem was to keep no account of a wrong done to you is for it not to come up and hurt you anymore, for it not to come up and be a place where you don't want to visit anymore, for it not to come up to cause you to not to want to be around that person, or just get rid of this circumstance or this activity that's happening to me because it's really bad. I don't like it. And so we're going to talk about why we don't like it in a few minutes, but let's finish this one and let me bring up the next one. I have an example, and I can't remember that if I was listening to the radio, I think years ago when I was doing my radio show, I used to do a radio show called Hidden Manor, and I would talk about Hidden Manor. And during that time, I was listening to Christian radio, trying to get all of that right. And on the radio station, one person was telling this story, and the person that did it, the subject of this story that she's about to read to you, Uh, I could, I just could not imagine how she could have done that. This was years and years ago. I could not imagine how she would have done that. So read that, Shanti. Let's see what she did.
I heard an example of this that I was surprised to hear because I did not usually tell these kinds of stories. Someone was telling me a lady gave her testimony on a radio station of how she used love to escape rape. Her report was that she was accosted by a person with a knife that forced her on the back seat and proceeded to try to rape her. And she began to tell him how much she loved him as a person. And she kept telling him, he kept telling her to shut up or he was going to cut her into many pieces. And her reply was, and every piece of me will still love you. After he heard those words, he left the car and did not rape her. Why? Because love did not seek its own. It was touchy or fretful or resentful. It was not touchy or fretful or resentful. It took no account of the evil being done to it at the time, nor did love pay any attention to the suffered wrong of the attempted rape. The lady was freed from harm and let go, and she won the battle by just practicing love. I was truly amazed because who can think of loving someone that's committing a violent crime against you?
Well, I was just saying when I heard that, I know that I would at that time I would have failed that test. Does anybody think it's hard to remember to love people when they're doing stuff like that? Is that just me?
You said, does anyone think that that it would be hard?
Yeah, it would be hard to love someone that's doing something to you like that.
I think it would, in our process of having the capacity to love people, but over a period of time, like this lady, it seemed like she didn't struggle at all to let love work.
No, and that's the good part about it. That's a good part about it, Shantice, because people just don't do physical harm to you. They do emotional harm. They do uh, psychological harm, and it's difficult. But in order to do what she did, you have to be a more mature Christian. You really do, because you can't do that as a young Christian, and you can't do that even as a teenage Christian. You have to be a Christian. You have to be more mature. You know, um, I was reading in John today about how the chief priests and the Pharisees were trying to kill Jesus after they saw all the miracles that he did, and they saw that the people were um, coming after him, and they saw that the people believed he was the Messiah. They wanted to not give up their position, and so they had planned to kill him, and he just kept dodging them. He had to keep dodging them. But can you imagine all of these religious folks that have been serving God all of this time are the very ones that you have to hide from because they're the ones that's trying to kill you? Well, Jesus was doing that, and he was going to also, he knew he was going to die, but he was also going to die for these guys. He was going to go ahead and die for these guys. Now, one of our greatest problems is, and I think is, when we think about Jesus, it's hard to think about him being like us. We think about him being more like Christ, because he, he is God, even though he gave up his deity, to come down and save us. He's our best example. But hardly ever we look at him as an example. We look more to the apostles and the other folks that are examples in the Bible than we do Jesus. Because people hardly ever say, you know what? Not the ones that says, well, what would Jesus do? No, not them, because they're being, most of the time, being sarcastic. But do we say to ourselves, when, well, what did Jesus do? That's what I should do. That's what I should do. And so we have a problem with that. And it's really amazing to me that we won't do that. We won't do that. And we find that hard to do. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute when we get to that part. We're going to talk about that. Okay, go ahead. And that was the end of that one. We started that one last week. And it is not keeping an account of wrong done to you means, I'm tired of you doing this. I'm tired of dealing up with this. I'm tired of putting up with this. I am tired of that. And so we're going to see how we're going to go into the reason we get tired of it so that we can handle that better and we can, work with it better. We're going to go into the reason that we say that. But right now, we're going to go into the next one because it's the next one that helps us understand, and the following after that helps us understand why we just get tired of people who just do stuff and do stuff and do stuff. We just get tired of that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Okay, let's go into the last one before we, this is the last one that's the practical characteristic of love. So next week, we're going to get into the final discussion of the love before we change subjects. But read this one, Sean.
Another characteristic of love is the lack of fear, which is found in 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. When you function in this characteristic, you are not afraid of anything or anybody that comes along because there is no fear in love. In addition, perfect love casts out fear because fear has torment. A person that does not fear is mature in love because they are able to tolerate anything and everything that shows up and is ready to believe the best of every person. Their hopes are fadeless under all circumstances and conditions, and they are able to withstand everything without worrying.
Okay, so when we think about why we don't like things to happen to us, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times it's because of fear. Now, I want everybody that's on tonight to just think about something that you don't like, something that you don't want people to do to you, something that you don't want to happen. Why? Why? And so once you think about it, ask yourself why. Ask yourself why I don't want this to happen. And what you'll find behind some of it is fear, because I fear this happening to me, I am going to not do what Jesus told me to do because I fear. So having an understanding of that, our pastor says, and Bishop Walker says, fear means, and he I forgot who he said came up with this, but he said it means false evidence appearing real. So 90-something% of the time, the things we're fearful of never happen, but we allow fear to cause us to operate in a certain way, to behave in a certain way, and not to do what Jesus has told us to do because of fear. So we have to really understand that, fear is usually the culprit. It's the reason we don't do what we know to do. and it's the reason we don't love a lot. That is the reason. And we're going to get into that in the next slide. And now we're getting to the part that I've said that we were going to get to a little later. When we don't understand about how Jesus has saved us from everything, we refuse to let that go and let God. Just turn it loose. And, you know, can you imagine taking a beautiful crystal bowl, and you know that if you drop it, it's going to break, but you go ahead and drop it anyway because you know you're supposed to drop it. And if it breaks, that's fine. If it doesn't break, that's fine. You have to be able to drop it. That's how you cast your care. You can't cast your care unto the Lord for him to care for it, for him to do it, if you're afraid of the bowl breaking. That's fear. You have to go ahead and let it go. And after you say, God, you have to do like Abraham did. You know how to do like Abraham did. You know what Abraham did? When God told him to sacrifice his son, he had the knife in his hand, ready to sacrifice his son, because he believed that God was going to raise him from the dead. Our problem is we don't believe God's going to do what he said. Since we don't believe God is going to do what he said, we go ahead and we won't let this bowl drop, because we don't think that God can put all these pieces again and make a new bowl. And that's fear. False evidence appearing real. Fear, you know, there is no fear in perfect love. There's no fear. We have to let go and let God, and care not about what's the circumstances are. And care not and say, God, you got this, you know, whatever happened to me today, I didn't like it. I'm real upset about it. But you know what? I'm putting this in your hand because you said cast my cares on you, and I'm going to bed. And you go to bed and you sleep sound like a baby, because you know that he will take care of it. So the only way that we can overcome the understanding of the allowing fear to torment us and do this to us is because we won't let go. And the devil knows if he can keep us afraid, we're going to keep on doing it. We're going to keep on doing what we were doing, you know. So there's no fear in perfect love. So let's look at a little more of this, because there's another part that I want to get to about the importance of love. So I'm going to get to that part. I'm trying to finish this before my time is up, so that I would have enough time to finish the one next week. Okay, so now let's go to the next slide. Okay, go ahead, Shannon, read this one.
1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. For better understanding, let us take a look at some of the Greek words in this passage. The word perfect in this passage is teleos, which means of men full grown, adult, of full age, mature. The word torment is kolasis or kolasis, which means correction, punishment, penalty. This is important to understand, because if you are mature in love, you can cast out these things. The word cast is balo, which means to throw or let go of a thing without caring where it falls. In other words, you let it go and do not care about the results.
Okay, so that's what we've been talking about. You letting it go and not care about the results. That includes every area of our life. That includes our family members. That includes our jobs. That includes church. That includes organizations, that includes our finances. When we have done what we're supposed to do in order to obey the rules that's related to that particular thing, then we have to let go. We have to let it go. And we don't let it go because of fear. So there's no fear in perfect love. There's absolutely no fear in perfect love. Love will never hurt anyone. Love is selfless. It always considers the other person first, and it gives the other person the advantage. And so therefore, you set yourself up to win when you do that, but it does sound like that you lose. And a lot of times when people set themselves up to win when they do that, people say that they're weak. No, it takes strength for you to love somebody that's doing you wrong. That's not weakness. That's strength. It's easy. It's easy not to love people. That's easy. But it takes strength. It takes strength. So we want to just remember that love will never hurt anybody. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Love will never hurt anybody. You know, it will never put itself above other people. And so now, why is that important? And the reason I gave you the definition of these words, because when we talk about love being like this, and there's no fear in it, perfect love. Can anyone imagine the last time that you did something that you know you weren't supposed to do, that you were totally disobedient to what God told you to do, and you were very cavalier about it, and he still loved you and me anyway? When was the last time that we did something we know we wasn't supposed to do, and God still loved us? He still loved us all the time. I bet most of us can say yesterday or today, you know, if we didn't obey something we were supposed to obey, and we're just very cavalier about it. We're very cavalier about it. But you know what? God showed us how to do that, because he doesn't care about us actually doing the sin. What he cares about is us not repenting, turning from that, and getting his word in so that we won't do it. So he lets it go. He lets it go, but we won't let it go. Why? Because of fear. So we have to really, that is the key thing tonight. Let it go. Let the stuff go. Let God have it, and go ahead and give up the results to God. Say, God, you got this. I'm done. I've done all I know to do, and you got this. I'm just finished with this right now. So let's jump over in here and see why love is important, because this is going to be very interesting to us. Okay, so go ahead and read this one, Sean.
Why is love so important? Because love never fails. Everybody wants to be loved, even those that say they don't want love. Love is never turned down, because it is an integral part of the need we have for each other. We have misunderstood the real essence of love because we have associated with primarily with sex, sexual love that we have for spouses, the family love we have for family members, or the love we have for our friends and acquaintances. While all of these are real and necessary, the true essence of love begins before any of these come into play. To love anyone properly in any way of the areas in any of the areas mentioned above, we must understand the power of unconditional love. God is love, and his love is unconditional. Nothing that is a part of God is ever going to fail because he is God. Unconditional love is the kind of love that makes no excuses for not loving someone.
Okay, so here's the bottom line. We cannot adequately love our family members. We cannot adequately love our spouses. We cannot adequately love our brothers and our friends. And those loves are defined in the Bible. Those three are defined in the Bible as love, but they're not defined as the unconditional love. So we can't do that. We can't do that successfully without much drama if we don't love them unconditionally first. You know, we have to love people unconditionally first, and love is important because it's really needed before we do any of the other three. There's no way that we could do any of the other three and that'd be okay. You know, when we're thinking about um uh let me just ask you, get your opinion on this. What do you think happens if um people start relationships with people that don't love them unconditionally? Maybe you get married, but you don't love that person unconditionally, or maybe you're in a best friend relationship and you don't love that person unconditionally. What do you think happens to that relationship? Inez, what do you think?
Well, I just think eventually you have mistrust there, some misunderstandings that you can't resolve because you have put conditions on how you care for that person. Where everything they do, you have something to say or you criticize or something like that. I don't know if that's what you meant or not, but
Yeah, that's what I meant. See,
yeah,
what the world do is they fall in love with people because of looks. They fall in
yeah,
love with people because of money. They fall in love with people because they're witty and funny, you know. And so they say they fall in love. That's what they're saying. But love is a choice. You don't fall there. You choose to go there. And so when you love a person unconditionally, when you decide to do that, you first prepare yourself to do one of four things. Number one, you prepare yourself to tolerate their issues.
mm-hmm.
If you're going to love a person unconditionally, you have to prepare yourself to tolerate their issues. Number two, you have to tolerate their idiosyncrasies, that unusual stuff that you don't see anybody doing but them, and it gets on your nerves really bad. You have to prepare yourself to tolerate that. That idiosyncrasy could be something as small as smacking, popping gum. You understand what I'm saying? So you
Yeah,
have to prepare yourself. Number three, you have to prepare yourself to help them overcome their bad habits. You have to prepare yourself for that. And number four, you have to prepare yourself to fight the devil and not them, because that's what Jesus said. So if you don't do this before you get in a relationship with people, it's going to be a stormy ride. It is going to be a lot of trauma and a lot of drama because you have already decided on these four things these are conditions I won't tolerate. These are things I won't tolerate. And because I won't tolerate them, I am really agitated and aggravated with you. And I wish you would stop doing that. I've told you over and over to stop doing that. You're still doing that. But I'm getting ready to throw you under the bus, or I'm getting ready to separate myself, or I'm getting ready to tell you off, or I'm getting ready to revenge on you, or I'm getting ready to teach you a lesson. Why? because we do not love them unconditionally. And see, when you mature enough for that, when that person start acting up, Jesus wants to deal with them. But when you don't release it and let it go, he can't. Somebody acting a fool, and you done all you can to help them, you know, and all you do is say, Jesus, I'm gonna do like you said. I'm gonna love them, and I'm going to bed, and I put this in your hands. And he knows what he's gonna do, because he said, vengeance is his. We're all his children. He knows how to handle each one of them better than we do. Each one better than we do, but we hold on to the stuff for fear, because we fear them doing that to us again. We fear them making us go through some things we don't need to go through again. We fear them causing us problems that we just don't want to be bothered with. We fear that, instead of dropping that crystal bowl, letting it break, or letting God catch it and it doesn't break. And so that's really important. It's really important that we understand this, because keeping no record of wrong done you. I can't say I have ever met people that don't keep records of wrongs done them. You know, they will be. I haven't met them yet, but I know there's plenty out there, because my world is so small. I haven't met them yet, but there's plenty out there. So that's what we want to be. We want to be some of those people that keep no record of wrong, so that we would be the ones that people will say, yeah, I know this person, like this lady did saved herself from being raped by loving people rather than fighting them because of fear. Okay, so let's go to the next one, Sean.
We like to love those that respond to us with some kind of kindness, or at least do not make us angry by something they said or did. However, those that disregard our person, disrespect and dishonor us, and hate means to love less, us are the ones that we find it very difficult to love them. This is where deciding to love people becomes very important, because loving people unconditionally calls for a definite, unshakable decision to do so. Once you make the decision to love unconditionally, then you are ready for spousal, family, and brotherly love. You can't love in any of these areas if you do not love the person unconditionally first. I've heard people use respect as a substitute for love. Respect is not love. The definition of respect is a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities. Thank you. By their abilities, qualities, or achievements, or admires someone or something deeply as a result of their abilities, qualities, or achievements. When people do this, they have a serious problem staying in relationships that are established based on respect.
Okay, so I chose respect. We had talked about some other things, but I chose respect because I hear that a lot from people. And you know, and a lot of times we as women, since I'm a woman, I'll speak from that point of view, we don't understand some of the attributes of males. And so we really get ourselves into stuff by not understanding some of the attributes of male. They are visible people, and they are people that like to do things to show that they love you. So instead of doing loving things, they would buy you something or bring you something or take you somewhere. But that unconditional love, when that happens, that's not, that is honor. That's not love, because love is when they put up with you when they shouldn't. Love is when they tolerate stuff that they should not tolerate. Love is when they let you be first instead of putting themselves first, and it works vice versa. But these characteristics of love, that's what love is. But we have defined it wrong. It's not honor, it's not respect. All those are necessary, but love is what we have to do to understand what it is, and not keep thinking that it's something else. Let's just go back to one of them. Let's go back to one of the old ones. That one was keep no accounts of doing wrong. This was not insisting on your own rights in your own way. This one was rejoicing when things are right and when truth triumphs. This one is not rejoicing in evil. This one, just a few of them, does not approve of hot-tempered characteristics. When your spouse or your family members or your co-workers do these things, this is love. It's not honor. It's not respect. This is love. So when people do stuff to us that makes us angry and upset us the way it does, and it doesn't matter who it is, it could be a co-worker, it could be somebody in the grocery store, we define some of this stuff as, well, you don't love me. No, because that's not it. That's not it. And so since we're responsible for what we do, we just have to make sure that we love them and turn that over to Jesus and cast that care on him and let him deal with them. And when I first started dealing with love, God just he just blessed me from no end, because this is what I did when I first started trying to learn how to love people. I would do that. I don't care what they did to me. I would just turn around, and sometimes I'd be almost in tears, and I would be saying, God, I that really hurt, but I'm just gonna let it go. And I would say I was gonna let it go, and then I'd be crying like a baby, worse than a baby, And you know how that is if you're grown and you're crying like a baby. But then I know that these people hear from God, because in my face, they would say or do something that I knew that God had said something to them about what they did.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it. And so you have that experience as well. You have experiences where some family members or some coworkers or some people at church, whatever you in relationship with people, and they will apologize because God have said something to them about it. And I remember people coming to the church apologizing to people that had left. They came back and said they couldn't get any rest, and God told them to come back and apologize. Well, how could that happen? It happened because the person they did it to loved them. And God will not let love not be rewarded. He will not let love not be seen. And so that's what we talked a couple of times ago about Leah, about people who were not loved. Leah was Jacob's wife. And so God made sure she had all these children to love on her. She still tried to get Jacob to love her, but he never did. God will not let love not be seen. He will not let love not be rewarded. He is love himself. And if we think about it, and I want us all to think about this, and I know we say it, but this is not a cliche. This is something that we should think about. When was the last time we disobeyed God and he still loved us? When was the last time we didn't do what he told us to do and he still loved us? When was the last time we put our assignment on the side and didn't do it and he still loved us? That's the example. That's our example. We can't get past that. And we have to get to this place where we do these 4 things for people. Unconditionally love them. Understand and tolerate their issues. Tolerate their idiosyncrasies. Help them overcome bad habits. And fight the devil on their behalf and stop fighting them. It's very important that we understand what love is and how important love is. And it's important in every area of our life. I don't have time to talk about that this week. That's going to be our subject next week. And so we're going to go over some examples of how that's important and how we can apply it practically in our life. But we just can't overlook it. We can't overlook it because we think it's something else. It is not respect. It is not honor. It is and women and men do this. The husband feel unappreciative, and she said something. Well, I cook for you every day. Well, yeah, you're supposed to do that. But these things that we're talking about here, that's how a person knows that they are loved. Even though they can't articulate it, even though they don't know exactly what it is, all of that is tolerating them and allowing them to be who they are and helping them come up out of stuff that they're in, whether it's bondage, whether it's misinformation, whether it's lack of information, whether it's ignorance, whatever it is. It is an opportunity for us to love them and not sign up for something that isn't love anyway. So we just wanted to make sure that we did that. We want to make sure we did that. And so let's read this one, Sean.
This subject is talked about, well, love is barometer. Is that correct? Barometer?
Yeah, barometer.
For all assignments. This subject is talked about a lot, but we have a challenge sometimes because we have not considered a very important part of love being such an important part of our covenant with God. Love accompanies everything that we are commanded to do. All of God's covenants and dispensations are accompanied by love because God is love. He does nothing without love in mind. He has positioned us through Christ to never be without love. We just have to recognize what love is and what it is not. Some of us think that we can adhere to the principles, components, rules, and regulations that the Lord has commanded us to do and get the results that the Word of God says that we would get without even thinking about whether or not you have attached love as a part of the process. However, you cannot do anything. You cannot do any of it without applying love to the formula. All of the characteristics of love that we talked about above apply, but you have to apply it with wisdom.
Okay, so here we are talking about everything that we do, we have to apply love. And so God positioned us never to be without love because of Jesus. Who can explain what that means? Can you explain what that means, Shantice?
Can you repeat that?
God has positioned us never to be without love because he sent his son Jesus to take care of that. What does that mean to you?
Well, he loved us. And because he loved us, he sent his son to die for us. for all of our sins. He didn't think twice about it. And he already knew who we are, how we were, and how we would act and behave, and even that some of us would reject him, his son Jesus.
Okay, that's good. How about you, Inez?
I forgot the question.
The question is, God sent Jesus to make sure that we would never be without love.
Yes, I see that here. He's in Jesus. So we know that we're loved through Jesus Christ. But however, I was reading this when you was reading, and I know that when you said principles, components, and all of that in here, that some people, we show love, and sometimes we don't know that we're showing love when we are not agitating and bothering and saying stuff that out of the will of the Lord. And God give us, and it says at the bottom, wisdom. And we do need wisdom and understanding and all of that to go along with how we love. And also you said here, applying love, whether we know what love is and what it is not. And when we know what it is not, we're able to do what Lord Jesus wants us to do, is to love people without that condition, not always looking at the wrong they do, if they stepped on our toes, if they cut in front of us, and our family members, if they always picking with us and starting something up, talking about our past. You know how some relatives do. And other people that we meet on the job that just irritate us because they'll go and stand at the copier or the water fountains, or, just do things that irritates us. And that's anything that's not of God is not, it's not love the way God wants us to love. He wants us to be patient, understanding, and love people because he loves us in spite of our stuff, in spite of our idiosyncrasies and all the stuff that we do. Jesus still loves us, and he don't want us lost. I don't know.
Right, and that's our example, Inez. What do you think, Marlene? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
You
I
wanted
was
to
just thinking about the scripture, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And he loved us unconditionally. And one of the greatest commandments that he said for us to love him with all our heart, mind, and soul, and then our neighbor as ourselves. And then just like Arnez just said, and Shantice, sometimes people love people. Somebody got wronged or hurt or talked about or something like that. Sometimes people don't love the way God say love, so they'll do it with maybe buying a gift or closing up their walls of compassion. Don't have nothing else to do with them. They say, "I forgive you," and I forgive them, but then your actions doesn't match up what you say.
Yeah. Okay. So, although